going live today to chat about some of the most common questions or consistent questions I get asked as a vocal coach, which I am, and I'm also a professional singer here in Auckland, New Zealand, and have been for about 28 years. It's a long time. So I've amassed both from my own personal experience, a ton of kind of tips that I love to share as part of my Big Notes Get Votes platform, my blog, but also I have a coaching curriculum and I coach emerging artists. And before we start, basically what happens is I ask them a series of questions as part of what I call my artist questionnaire. And that is where I get all the information on what they want to work on, where they need to start, what we should focus on, and I create a personalized plan for them to help them develop their voice. And I want to share some of these tips with you and help you to do the same. So today's question, and I've been going live for the last week and I'm going to continue to go live for another week. Today's question is, how do I make my voice sound consistent? So I want to chat about 3 things that I think can help you. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to see them because we are live. And I can see a ton of amazing people jumping live on YouTube. Beautiful nature. Thanks. Hey and hey and hey to you. It's lovely to see you here. Jackson, shouldn't you be in school, mate? What's going on? But it's lovely to have people live, and I would love to answer any questions as they come up. But let me just roll straight in to what it is that I want to share with you. So a lot of artists, when they complete that artist questionnaire, the question of how do I make my voice consistent is common. You know, we want to have consistency because that helps us to feel confident about our vocal ability. And I think that is really what shifts the dial. So my coaching curriculum, I call it like my singer's technique toolkit. Once you can shove your technique toolkit full of tips and troubleshooting tools that you can use, it makes it a lot easier to always feel like you have a handle on what you're doing as a singer. Now, where to start though? First things first, I want to invite you to my masterclass that I'm hosting. I'm doing a couple of masterclasses because if you're not sure of where you're at, I want to offer you a similar kind of system option to personalize your vocal development plan for your voice. And the masterclass is called the 4 must ask questions for developing your singing voice. And what we're going to do is I'll ask you a couple of questions and then we will basically figure out where you are on my framework, which I'll share with you a little bit more about today, which is prepare, practice, polish, and perform. We'll figure out where you are, what stage you're at, and then a personalized plan by the end of the masterclass to exactly what steps you should take to develop your voice. So I'll pop the link in once the live is done, where you can sign up for the free masterclass. And there are a couple of date options, so you have plenty of choices. But yes, about that framework and figuring out where you are when you're wanting to make your voice sound consistent, I believe you need to start with what I call prepare. This is all the things that you do off stage. In fact, 3 out of the 4 pillars of my framework you need to do off stage. And it's about daily vocal care habits. So it's about looking after your body and figuring out what kind of like ground zero is for you and making sure that you do everything that you can to stay at that point. So for me, for humans, to survive, we need sleep, hydration, and nutrition. So that's a really good place to start. And that's something that I like to keep an eye on. And you can just set loose goals for yourself. Like I like 7 hours of sleep, makes me feel good. I like to have a certain amount of water every day and what I call a hydration plan. So when I'm not touring or gigging a lot, I still have to keep my voice up for sessions and voiceovers and different studio things that I do and talking, because, you know, I do a lot of talking as a coach. So I will have that base sleep, hydration, nutrition element, but I won't necessarily do all the things like I steam my voice, I do a nasal irrigation, I salt gargle, I drink a ton of licorice tea. There's all these things that I can roll in to up-level my daily vocal habits when I'm on tour. But the base of it, for when the workload is a little bit lower is sleep, hydration, nutrition. You can use a hydration formula. I take an athlete's formula, which is 0.03 times your weight in kilos, and it spits you out an amount of water or hydration in liters that you want to get each day. And it's personalized to you, which is great. And so you can use that as a guide or a goal to work towards. And some of that hydration is going to come from food. So we have to factor in the nutrition. And why nutrition matters is because sometimes certain foods for certain people, and this is not generalized, you kind of have to map it out yourself and see what works. But certain foods can trigger responses in you that impact your voice. So excess phlegm production from dairy, reflux from spicy foods. You know, there's lots of different nutritional elements that can help, but also kind of hold us back as vocalists. And so when we're looking at that first stage of preparation, we're trying to figure out what gives us the optimum platform for our voices and for feeling consistent off stage, because that's really the secret. So if you know what to keep yourself at sort of ground zero for your day-to-day vocal care habits, it makes such a difference. Then we add on some kind of singing specific ones, which I call, well, I don't call them, they're called sirens. And it's a stretch, a wake up, and a check-in for your voice. The best exercise you can do as a singer, it's really tiny and really small. Let me demo, it's like this. So hopefully small enough that you could hear it, but the point is that it is really about keeping it small and just kind of lengthening the vocal folds. That's a great thing for an exercise to use before you start to speak, to release tension, to check in, all of the things I said, to kind of wake up. If you haven't been talking for a while, it's a great exercise to kind of get the crank going again and get your voice back into a speaking level, comfort, a speaking comfort level. If you are at a pinch for like a warm-up, a really good warm-up, you could do that a few times just to quickly prepare your voice, but ideally you would do a little something that's more substantial and relative to what you're about to perform. We'll talk about practice, warm-ups and all of that in just a second. So the last part is singer stretches, and that's to release tension all throughout your body, including your voice. There's a little tool that we can use as well called a silent giggle that helps to make sure that you're creating space in your throat and are not tensing any of the false vocal folds that can create a bit of a lid essentially to your sound wave and make it a lot harder for you to sing. So these kind of singing specific tools you can learn by working with a vocal coach, but the main stuff is just looking after your body, making sure that your baseline is always in good shape, and that helps to keep you consistent before you even overlay any singing techniques or anything else on top of it. Because primarily vocal health for me is number one. If you don't have a healthy voice, you can't do anything. You can't overlay any techniques. No matter how amazing they might be, you can't effectively overlay those techniques onto your voice. So keeping your voice healthy is really the number one priority. And that's, like I said, what I incorporate in the first pillar of my coaching framework called prepare. Now, when you move on to the next stage, so your voice is doing well, you know what's working for you, and there are a couple of other elements that we'll talk about as part of tip 3 that helps you to identify and track what's working, which is a vocal journal. Come into that in a second. But once you know, okay, this is what it takes to make me feel good because my instrument is housed in my body, I'm going to keep this at a consistent level. Excellent. First step to keeping your sound and your voice consistent. Next step, practice. Once you know what you want to work on as a singer, you can formulate a practice plan, and that usually incorporates some kind of check-in with your body and your voice using a vocal journal, using your sirens, using your singer stretches for releasing tension, because tension is the singer of the enemy. Yeah, is the enemy of the singer. That's what I'm trying to say. Tension is the enemy of the singer. And then what you want to do is make sure you warm up your voice effectively. You want to make sure that you do a vocal workout So where it's something really technically specific that you're spotlighting, or you might be in a phase of what I call the song study. And that's where you're taking a deep dive into a particular song or a piece of music and breaking down all the components to be sure that you are comfortable and have made some intentional decisions stylistically or technically to be able to deliver them without thinking, because that's the goal. Once you get to the performance phase, you just want to be in the moment and have done all the work off stage, because there's enough variables in performance as it is for you to be figuring out how to sing a song at that point. So then after you have your vocal workout or your technique focus, your song study, you'll then want to warm down your voice and take what appropriate vocal rest you need, depending on how hard you're working to develop your voice. And it's just like any exercise plan, a practice plan needs to be tailored or personalized based on where you're at today and what it is that you're working on. And it doesn't matter how long you've been singing or, you know, how little you've been singing. We need to check in, because the fact that our body houses our instrument, we need to be mindful of all of the elements that go into creating the most efficient practice as possible. And that can sometimes just be vocal stamina. If you haven't been gigging for a while, I call it gig fitness. You need to build back up to that gig fitness, just like any exercise plan, because your larynx, after all, is a muscle and ligaments like the rest of your body. So if you can use that sort of mindset as if you were getting into the gym and use that as an approach, you will craft a really smart practice plan that helps you to be consistent. If you are overdoing it, you tend to fatigue quite quickly, and then that adds to the lack of consistency that you're able to deliver, because you need to rest your voice for longer and you're not able to keep consistent with your practices and keep developing. Next step is the journaling, which I mentioned. Knowing exactly what's happening with your day-to-day daily vocal care habits, but also your practice plan. Having a place, like I give my coaching clients a vocal journal template. They can write straight in it, or they can use it, a Google Doc, a piece of paper, to formulate their own vocal journal. But the point is that you want to journal at least a week of how your voice is feeling first thing in the morning when you wake up, after any high voice use, and that includes speaking and singing, and then how it feels at the end of the day. You'll start to notice if you're in a job that has you speaking a lot during the day and you're kind of Monday to Friday, you'll notice that your voice does just naturally get tired by Friday. And that informs you to say, well, if you're also gigging, which a lot of musicians are working during the day and then also going out to gig at night, you might need to really focus on doing some practices, allowing space and time for practices that super nurture your voice, maybe a slightly longer warm-up or a slightly shorter warm-up. If your voice is tired, just personalizing based on the information that you're giving, that your voice is giving you. Because quite often we do a one-size-fits-all kind of cookie-cutter approach to singing, and it really has to be dynamic based on how you feel on the day, what your goals are for your voice, and you as a singer. The vocal journal helps. And what I mentioned earlier on was that there are a couple of key factors that you get to track in the vocal journal that also give you the best information, which is how hormonally you're feeling. And this is men and women. And then also, you can track your nutritional triggers. You can track sleep, you can track your hydration, and you start to see over a 7-day period how that impacts you. That information is what keeps you consistent. Yes, also practicing and making sure that you're, effectively utilizing your instrument. That will make a difference. But like I said in the beginning, if your vocal health isn't up to par, it's very hard to overlay any techniques effectively to develop your voice or to be able to be consistent with it. So in my framework of prepare, practice, polish, and perform, those are the first two phases. They're the ones that really build the foundations. And then the polishing is where we take songs and we're really focusing on the tweaks and the troubleshooting elements as a bridge into performance. It's always great to start with a performance goal in mind so that it makes it easier to want to keep doing all those other things. And you can create your own performance opportunities no matter where you're at in your career. You could do videos for YouTube, you can do live streams, you can be recording your voice for demos that you want to release, that you want to record professionally and release later on. Like, there's lots of use case scenarios, even house concerts, just doing a little show for your flatmates or your family. You don't have to be performing at Wembley Arena to have a performance goal to work towards. And, you know, even Beyonce only does a couple of performances a year. So you better believe she's making sure that she's keeping up with her daily vocal care habits and making sure that she's practicing and keeping her gig fitness strong. But she would certainly ramp things up in the lead up to any big performances. And that's the same approach that we want to take as well. We want to steal a little leaf out of the Beyonce playbook. And so that framework, that is a super healthy framework for you to develop your voice. And if you want to know where you are, where you should start on that framework, because you might be doing a whole combo of these things, I'd love to invite you to my masterclass. I'm doing 3 of them over the next week, and I'll pop the link for the invite and the invite to the masterclass, which is called 4 Must-Ask Questions for Developing Your Singing Voice. And in that, we'll chat through a couple of key questions. You'll get an answer as to which stage you're at, and then we'll work out what a nice personalized plan of next steps are for you to move forward. So I hope you found that helpful today. And like I said in the beginning as well, I'm going live for another week with tons of questions. The most asked questions I get as a vocal coach. Tomorrow's one is how to improve your vocal stamina. That is a biggie. And that follows on really nicely from today's topic. So yeah, pop questions in the comments. Holler if you need anything. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow again at 11 a.m. New Zealand Standard Time. Have a great day.